Let's suppose
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show, or good morning, I guess, if you're on the West Coast or somewhere even further west. Good morning. Welcome to the pre-show for the Sean Spicer White House press briefing, which we always cover here live at Right Side Broadcasting. I'm Steve Lookner. The press briefing today will start at 1:30 Eastern, which is about 40 minutes from now. So we're doing our pre-coverage. As we bring you pre-coverage and post-coverage, who else does that? I don't know if anyone does that the way we do. So we do it for you. Today, let's see, what do we think he's going to talk about today? Well, as every day, I'm sure there will be Russia questions because they never stop. And I'm sure there will be questions on wiretapping because that never stops. And I'm trying to think of what else new. You know, perhaps they will ask Sean Spicer about the situation in South Korea because the South Korean president was officially removed from office last night. If you want to know why, I actually did a video about it last night. You can watch it on Right Side's YouTube site. Just search. It's called Breaking News: South Korean President Removed. Did a live stream last night, and you can watch that there. But with the South Korean president being removed, in 2 months they're going to have another election in South Korea. And from what I have been hearing, it's highly likely that the new president will be someone who has a bit of a different attitude towards North Korea. This current President Park, who was the current president, her administration was seen as willing to take a hardline stance toward North Korea, willing to go for hard sanctions, and they just brought in from the U.S. this anti-missile system, which they are installing in South Korea, and then supposedly the new likely president of South Korea will be someone who maybe wants to negotiate more, doesn't take such a hard line, wants to try to work with them rather than, say, threaten them kind of thing. So I'd actually seen a quote from someone who what I'd seen was called like the most likely president of South Korea, the next president, and he said that he wasn't for this anti-missile system. So will they send it back? What's going to happen with that right now? So I'm guessing that might be asked about during the press conference. Speaking of which, by the way, there is this there's this whole thing going on now, which if you're interested in reading more about this, there's a story in the New York Times about it today. Even if you don't like the New York Times, this story was quite interesting. But basically, China doesn't like us sending our anti-missile system to South Korea because they see it as destabilizing, and they don't like having our anti-missile system there. It's like a military. It'd be like if somebody, Russia installed an anti-missile system in Mexico. Our government would probably be upset about that. So China doesn't like having it there. And what's happening in China, though, is there's this big campaign in China to anti-South Korea campaign since South Korea, a week or so ago, announced they were going to have this anti-missile system come into South Korea. China is doing these things where basically they're trying to punish South Korea. Well, it's like a campaign against South Korea, like a soft campaign. So one thing they're doing, for example, is they're not letting South Koreans, they're slowing down any kind of visas that they would give South Korean people. But the real big thing is this campaign against South Korean businesses where they're boycotting businesses. So there's this company that's letting South Korea put this it's LOTTE, I believe. It's a Korean company. And they're letting the government put some of the anti-missile system on their land, and the people in China are upset about that, and they're boycotting the company. But one thing I saw this morning in this New York Times story is that I think if I'm getting the number right, half of this company's buildings, this company has a bunch of buildings in China. It's basically a business conglomerate. I think they have over 100 buildings in China. I don't know if it's stores or factories or whatever, but half of them in the past week or so have been shut down for regulations violations. So they're I'm trying to think of what the ones I saw were. It was just just for various ones, it's you're violating this regulation, so we're shutting you down for a month or so, or for indefinitely. And this all happened to coincidentally, half of their buildings have been shut down for regulations in the last week or so. So it's not just the people of China are we don't like the South Korean company because of what they're doing. It's organized by the government, and also the state-run press, from what I've been reading, has been encouraging this anti-South Korea business thing since this anti-missile system was moved into South Korea by America, since South Korea let the American anti-missile system come in. So interesting story. Will this be asked about in the press conference? I don't know, but I thought it was interesting to talk about. Anyway, would love to hear any thoughts you might have on what you might think will be asked in the press briefing, or just any thoughts you have on the big issues that are going on today. So health bill, that's going on. It's supposedly moving forward in the House. I've heard nothing to suggest. From everything I'm hearing, in its current form, it wouldn't pass the Senate. So there's that whole issue. So who knows? My personal opinion right now is I feel like it's going to be very hard to get a version of this bill that passes the Senate, because you have some very conservative senators who want to throw out a lot of Obamacare, and you have some conservative Republican senators, and you have some moderate Republican senators, like some from blue states, who want to keep a bunch of stuff from Obamacare, subsidies and the things where no pre-existing conditions and stuff like that. and, some kind of punishment for people who don't buy health insurance, even though it's not going to be an individual mandate. There's still in the current House bill, there's like a 30%. You have to pay, and if you don't buy health insurance for 2 consecutive months and then you get health insurance again, you have to pay like 30% surcharge for the next entire year. So given that the Republicans have such a small majority in the Senate, I believe it's 52 Republicans there, it seems to me likely that whatever form of bill ends up going into the Senate or they settle on, there will be either conservative Republican senators or moderate Republican senators who feel they can't vote for it. Maybe I'm wrong, but if I had to predict, that's going to be the big issue. But would like to hear what you have to think. So what do you think about this whole health bill thing, health insurance thing? What are your opinions? What do you think about what's going on in South Korea? What do you think about this Russia stuff still being brought up? There's a whole General Flynn story I want to talk about too. But would love to hear your comments or answer your questions. So if you'd like, while we're doing our pre-show, to send in your comment, have it read on the air, the way you can do that is you can go to @Lookner on Twitter. That's my Twitter, @LOOKNER, and direct message me there if you'd like. Or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Let me know. Let me know what you're thinking about what's going on. Would like to hear from you. I'm just checking my Twitter for a second here. And I also want to just pull my email up to make sure I have it up here. And then I want to talk about this General Flynn story. So General Flynn, there's this very interesting story that came out about General Flynn yesterday. I'm guessing this might be asked about more. It was asked about a little bit yesterday in the press briefing, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't asked about again. So basically what the story is so General Michael Flynn, as you remember, he was the first national security advisor President Trump appointed, but shortly into President Trump's administration, about a month ago, General Flynn resigned. But the story came out yesterday that General Flynn had been doing paid lobbying work, supposedly for the Turkish government, but I'm not totally sure about this, supposedly for the Turkish government from August to November of last year, like during the campaign. And General Flynn's consulting company was paid over $500,000 for this consulting work. And supposedly, now you might think, well, this is like a weird conflict of interest thing, because if he's going to be national security advisor, and also if he was advising President Trump's campaign on national security, should he be being paid $500,000 by Turkey, if that's really what was going on? He was paid $500,000 by somebody Turkish, and what I've heard is that this person has connections to the Turkish government, but I've also heard somebody say, well, this wasn't necessarily from the Turkish government. Anyways, but a lot of people were saying the Turkish government were the ones who were paying him, General Flynn, from August to November of last year during the campaign. So you might wonder, like, hey, isn't there a conflict of interest if this person was doing all this campaigning for President Trump, for candidate Trump, and advising candidate Trump on national security, and then eventually was named national security advisor? Is it a conflict of interest? And what Sean Spicer said yesterday when he was asked about this is he said that President Trump and the administration had no idea this was happening at the end of last year. They didn't know. Vice President Pence actually said yesterday this was the first time he had heard of this happening, that this deal General Flynn had, this consulting deal with Turkey, supposedly. So they were saying it's the first they knew of it. Now, one might ask, should they have known about this? Wouldn't that be something that they should know about? And I will give credit on Morning Joe this morning. This is a point that they were saying that a number of people were saying that they thought the administration should know about this. So I don't know what the explanation is, but it feels like a story that Sean Spicer will be asked about. And he was really only asked about it quickly twice yesterday, and all he said was like, we didn't know about it. So I wonder if he'll be asked about it more. I also wonder, I had a thought this morning, which was like, is it possible that the administration did find out about this consulting deal, and it was like one of the reasons they wanted Michael Flynn to resign? Maybe, the story we got was, well, Michael Flynn resigned because we couldn't trust him anymore, and we let him know that because he didn't tell us that he had spoken to the Russian ambassador. He didn't give us full details of that conversation. But, that's a story, but not when somebody's given, when somebody gets let go in lots of industries, and a story is put out for the public, that's not necessarily the true story. And, perhaps there's a world in which this was something the administration found out about, but didn't want to make a big deal of. Maybe they just figured it wasn't worth getting into. I don't know. I'm just saying, to me, it's certainly possible they did know about this. And then you might say, well, why would Sean Spicer say they didn't know about this? I mean, I would say this. I certainly don't think presidents should lie all the time. But if you're naive if you think that in all of these press briefings from all of these presidents, they fully give you everything they know. And then there's probably situations where you don't want them giving you everything they know because, maybe there's things that should be secret or whatever. This goes for lots of industries. So I'm just saying I wouldn't necessarily, perhaps it's something the administration knew about. I don't know. I'm not saying generally they don't tell the truth in these briefings, but when you try to get down to what really happened in any one case, generally to me, there's more going on in any administration than you know, and if you were actually in the room. And think about, look, anywhere you've worked, I'm sure there's stuff going on where you work, and if somebody asks you about it or the company says something about it, it's not everything. They don't say everything that's going on. So that's all I'm saying. But maybe we'll be asked about it. I have no idea. I wasn't in the room. So there. Okay, so we are, once again, this is the pre-show for Sean Spicer's press briefing, which we cover here live whenever they happen at Right Side Broadcasting. And if you miss one, always know you can come to Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube or go to rsbn.tv, our webpage. You can go and watch it afterwards. So if you miss it, come home at night, want to watch it before bed or something, watch it. Or you want to binge watch them all on the weekend from the past week, go to Right Side Broadcasting. They're all there. And if you'd like, would love to hear what I should say, the press briefing is supposed to start in 25 minutes. As soon as it starts, we will go to it full screen live. And we will be doing a post show as we always do here. I'll come back after and we'll talk about the press briefing a bit. So hope you can stick around for that. Oh, yes. Okay, yes. And Jake, could you turn your volume up a little bit? You're a little soft in my ear. And if you want to write in, I'm going to read a couple of your comments in a moment. We'd love to hear your comments about either what you're looking for in the press briefing or what you think about general goings-on in the news today. Let me know. You can either direct message me on Twitter. I'm at @Lookner, @LOOKNER, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. I also want to let you know, in case you didn't know this, that President Trump is doing a rally next Wednesday in Nashville at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, so 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And we at Right Side will be there covering it live. I personally will be there. Some other folks will be there. We will be covering the rally live. Come here. You can watch it. And we do, as we always do, pre-coverage and post-coverage. So we will be the only ones, I think, because we've always been the only ones, who go out and we talk to the crowds. We're the only ones who show the crowds, but we also the only ones who talk to the crowds. So we will be talking to people out there who are at the rally, waiting for the rally, hearing what they have to think, what's going on with them. Oh, and we don't steal the rally feed like other channels do. We're going to have our own Right Side camera there to bring it to you. So looking forward to doing that. So get ready for a full, I don't want to say full day. It's a full day of coverage in the sense of it doesn't start like at 8 in the morning, but it's a full day in that we'll have the full pre-show and post-show for you. Really looking forward to that rally. And if you want to go to the rally, just know you can go to donaldjtrump.com and you can request tickets for the rally. So go there if you'd like that. And we would love, if you come to the rally and you're a fan of Right Side, please come say hi. We do interviews, as a lot of you know, at the rallies. We'd even be happy to interview you. So come, and some people have done that before and really appreciate it. So we love to meet our viewers and talk to you guys and say hi. So, and you don't have, look, if you don't want to be on camera, you can say hi anyway off camera and we'll talk to you then and say hi. So we'd love to say hi to you. Okay, I want to get to some of your comments. Oh, and the last thing I'll say is this before I get to your comments, because people are writing in comments. Thank you. Is we're going to the rally. We love going to the rallies. We want to keep going to the rallies and go to more live events. But that costs money. And as you've heard me say before, we don't take money from big donors who want to control what we do on the year. We want to be able to be independent and do the kind of programming we think you'd like to see. So we really do survive in large part thanks to your support. So if you'd like to donate, you can either go to rsbn.tv/donate. That's rsbn.tv/donate. Or if you're watching this live and the chat room is open there, you can just click that $sign at the bottom of the chat room. Just click on it, that $sign at the bottom of the chat window, and you can donate. Even a small amount really helps. We appreciate any amount. So thank you so much for those people who've donated in the past and all donations in the future. We really appreciate it, and it keeps us on the air. Okay, so let's hear a couple of you have written in. I want to get to your comments. Hold on for a second. This is from Chad Matthew. Chad Matthew says, "What do you think of the overly biased liberal media in the briefings? My opinion is that they still can't accept President Trump's massive landslide electoral victory. They might need their therapy dogs and crayons/coloring books, LOL. Need to give them their safe space in Afghanistan. Make them fight our war against ISIS." Thoughts? So, I will say this. On the one hand, traditionally, in presidential briefings, press secretary press briefings, there is a bit of a confrontational attitude because the press is there and they want information and they're always going to get less information than they want. So even if you go back and watch, say, Josh Earnest briefings from President Obama, it's not like the press was all nice to him and just everything he said they were totally cool with. So on the one hand, I do think some of the confrontationalness is just the nature of that press briefing. But I do agree, Chad, that there is this liberal bias in general in the mainstream media, and I just say that from my personally looking at the mainstream media for a long time, and since the campaign, the whole time President Trump was running, looking at it, and since he's been president, and I do think it's there. And I also believe that a lot of the press, those people in the mainstream media, personally really do not like Trump. And I think there's a great evidence of this from their personal Twitter feeds. If you read their personal Twitter feeds, for a number of them, it's clear. It's clear. To me, Maggie Haberman, perfect example of somebody. We go back and read her Twitter feed, does not like Trump, and it's a very biased Twitter feed. And Katie Tur is like this too. And unless they're intentionally trying to present a deceptive view of themselves on their Twitter feed, to me, those are two people where you can just see how much they dislike Donald Trump. They really don't like him, and this comes out in their Twitter feeds. And when I see people the people at the media. In the media who you see in the press briefings and you see covering Trump in general, I do think some of them do have a personal dislike of Trump, and it seeps out sometimes. So I wish it didn't happen. I'm fine with people, if you want to make an editorial, make an editorial. But to me, if you're covering the news for a major news entity that's not like overtly biased, like if it's not like HuffPost or Gateway Pundit or something like that, if it's the Washington Post or MSNBC or Fox News, even though they lean one way or whatever, this is a big news organization. You should have objectivity. I personally don't feel that their personal Twitter feeds should be overtly biased one way or the other too, because I think that shows that they can't. To me, if you're going to be a reporter for one of these big entities that's supposed to be a big news entity and supposed to be somewhat fair, you shouldn't have a personal Twitter feed that's totally biased. That's what I think. I think it's weird, and and I certainly think that the stories that run shouldn't be biased and the coverage shouldn't be biased unless they're going to overtly be out there as like, we're totally liberal or we're totally conservative. So I do think this is there. As to whether. So I think there's a bunch of things going on. I think when you see the confrontation in the briefings, I do think some of it is just the natural confrontation you see between press who wants information and press secretary who's not going to give them as much as they want. But I also think there is in the media, among some of them, this real, I don't think hatred is too strong a word for some of them, hatred of Trump and dislike of Trump and biased coverage, and I think that comes out sometimes in the press briefings too. Will it change? I don't know. I'm guessing no for some people, but we'll see. Maybe for some it will. Good question, Chad. Okay. Oh, this is from, this is from Vita Marie. Vita Marie says, let's see. I wonder what's going to happen with the CIA. How are we supposed to believe anything that comes out of these agencies anymore? So, are you saying what's going to happen with the CIA in terms of this WikiLeaks thing? I think you might be asking that. So, there was a big, as a lot of you know, WikiLeaks has just released the first part of a whole load of info and code, the documents that they got from the CIA. They obtained from the CIA, and included among them is, included among what they have obtained, they haven't released all of it yet, but included among what they have obtained is the new cyber weapons that the CIA has created and cyber spying tools to break into things like Android phones and Samsung TVs to make the TVs be able to listen to people even when the TVs are off, Android phones, iPhones, Windows computers, and so this stuff, and these are very powerful weapons, and they're supposed to be obviously very secret because you don't want enemies to know you have them. And this stuff got released, which seems like a huge security breach. And you're saying what is going to happen with the CIA? So I know there's a investigation going on, a criminal investigation into the release of these leaks. The release of this information that supposedly was classified from the CIA, and who did it? Was it somebody who worked for the CIA? Was it a contractor? Was it someone else? Who knows? So that's going on. As to your question, how are we supposed to believe anything that comes out of these agencies anymore? I think you might be talking about something from WikiLeaks, different than WikiLeaks, because with the WikiLeaks, I don't think anyone generally is questioning the veracity of the WikiLeaks CIA release. So perhaps you're talking about, Vita Marie, when there are leaks that come out from the intelligence agencies that have been the ones that seem to have been directed against the Trump administration over the last few weeks, like the leaks about General Flynn and the leaks about, Jeff Sessions meeting with the Russian ambassador and that kind of thing. Do you mean that kind of stuff? How are you supposed to believe anything that comes out of these agencies anymore? Well, I do think that's an issue we should be perpetually asking. That's not, I don't think you want to have an attitude of like these people are always trying to lie, because I do think a lot of people, and personally I think probably the vast majority of people who work at these places are really doing the right thing and also really work there and are patriotic and want America to do well, and want to support America through working at these intelligence agencies. But, you always get people who don't. And I don't know, perhaps there's a lot of people who work in these intelligence agencies these days who don't like President Trump. Or perhaps there's a few, but they do, I'm guessing with these leaks, it doesn't take a ton of people to give leaks. If there's one or two people on the inside who are disgruntled and they want to make leaks, they can give a lot of them out. So I don't have a real feel for how pervasive this is. But I do like to think that most of the people who work at these places, whoever is in charge, whether it's Democrat or Republican, are good people. And in the same way, I think, once in a while we hear about a rogue cop doing something, but I don't think that means that most cops are bad people. I think most cops are probably really good people. And also I would say the same with the information as well. I think that hopefully, I like to hope that a lot of the information that comes out of these agencies is legit, is true and accurate. And so, but again, it's one of these things where, unless you're on the real inside, you really don't know all the exact things. So that's the best I can do there. It's a very good question, Vita Marie. So, but be vigilant. I think you should always be vigilant. And no matter what anybody in government tells you, there's a difference between disbelieving anything that comes from the government and being vigilant about it. And I'm not for disbelieving it in America, but I do think if someone from the government says something, it could be the president, it could be a senator, it could be the FBI, it could be the IRS, you should always think like, does that sound right? And be willing to go to other stories and check it. That's just a natural thing. So it's not being a total skeptic, but it's always being willing to think like, is what they're telling us really accurate? I mean, we heard how many weapons of mass destruction there were in Iraq from our government, and it turns out there weren't. Or weren't as much as they said, at least. So, it's government can be wrong about things just like other people, civilians can. So keep an open mind is what I'm saying. But that's just me. All right, we have about 14 minutes until the press briefing, till the Sean Spicer press briefing, if it starts on time. We will go to it and cover it live. Excited to bring it to you. And again, if you want to send in your comments during our pre-show, either direct message me at Lookner, at Lookner on Twitter. Feel free to follow me while you're there. Also, feel free to follow Right Side Broadcasting at RSB Network. Or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. I should also say, just a heads up, if you subscribe to us on YouTube, which we love, we encourage you to do that, just make sure you hit the notifications bell and say you want to get notifications. The whole YouTube notifications system changed kind of recently, and they added this bell you need to click if you want to get notifications. So if you happen to be subscribed to us already and you're not getting notifications, go to our page and hit that bell and just make sure you're subscribed and nothing got messed up there to get the actual notifications. You got to subscribe and you got to hit the notifications bell and sign up for notifications. You got to do both those things to hear about all those videos as they happen. We also, just so you know, in case you didn't see it, we posted President Trump's weekly address. He just released this morning. It's on Right Side YouTube site. I encourage you all to go watch that if you feel so inclined. And let me see, a couple more of you wrote in, so I want to take your comments. Hold on. Okay, let's get back to, who do we have? We have John Stanton. Well, first of all, Chad Matthew says, thank you for your thoughts. You're welcome, Chad. Thank you for your question. Here's what John Stanton writes. John Stanton says, Trump should call for media outlets ombudsmen, if I'm saying that word right, ombudsmen, to be elevated to defend their organization's coverage. So you think that President Trump should call on the media outlets to have somebody who works there to defend their coverage. Now, it's interesting. So, I could see President Trump, President Trump, as we know, has been negative about the media at some points in the past. But I wonder do you think, John, that perhaps President Trump, there's like two sides. He could say, well, I should call them out. Or is there part of President Trump that might be thinking, the more I call them out, the more attention it draws to them, and I just don't even want to draw attention to them. So I'm going to start ignoring them rather than calling them out and being publicly angry with them because I just don't even want to give them any more attention. Perhaps that could happen. So I could see a bunch of different options here for how President Trump should deal with the press. I'm sure this is the kind of thing they talk about a lot in the White House. I mean, just think, if you were President Trump, you have a lot of different ways to approach the whole media thing and what you say about it. Do you talk about it a lot? Do you not talk about it at all? Are you nice to them? Are you confrontational? I'm guessing these kind of conversations go on all the time with all presidents. They're probably quite interesting conversations. So we'll see what happens, but thank you for your suggestion and your comment. I just want to give you a heads up, we're under 10 minutes until the press briefing, scheduled time of start. So we will go there live. We cover all the Sean Spicer White House press briefings live. We bring them to you live here at Right Side. We do a pre-show, we do a post-show, full coverage. Happy to do it, bring it to you. Vida Marie wrote a couple of more comments that I want to get to. She said, regarding her last comment, no, the CIA and FBI who talk about the Russians hacking the elections and the Trump wiretapping, also the investigation on Hillary. One last thing, thank you for pronouncing my name correct. So I can't remember, did I say Vida Marie before? I'm saying Vida Marie, I assume that's right. So sorry if I just messed it up. But okay, so you're saying, should we trust organizations like the CIA and the FBI when we have when we've had leaks that suggest there's Russian hacking, but there's no actual evidence of the Russian hacking so far, the elections. And you're saying also the investigation on Hillary, you think that's a reason not to trust the FBI. So fair enough. I understand your viewpoint, Vida Marie, and glad you wrote in. So thank you for writing in. Let's see. And John Stanton, you clarified, you said, Steve, that's their function, let them handle. Are you talking about ombudsmen at media outlets specifically? So I'm not familiar exactly with that position. I've heard of the ombudsman position in general anymore, but I'm not familiar with that position exactly. And it sounds like you're saying those people exist and they should have to defend their organization's coverage to the president. So that's your comment. Thank you, John. Let me know if I've missed something there. what else did I want to do here? Oh, I forgot to check my email real quick. Let me check that. And just to keep you updated, we have about 7 minutes or so till the press briefing from Sean Spicer. We will go right to it when it happens. We have a couple of messages from Jason Thornton, who is the person you sometimes see holding up the signs at the President Trump rallies. Hope we see you next week, Jason. Jason says, thank you for updating us last night about South Korea, you're saying. We love Late Night with Lookner. Thank you, Jason. You're welcome. Do you think the Japanese study on whether the THAAD system should be deployed in Japan would also anger the Chinese? We could redeploy the system in Japan as a backup in case South Korea no longer wants to antagonize China/North Korea by putting it directly in their backyard. Do you think the B-1s and B-52s that President Trump just deployed to South Korea should be redeployed to Japan without the same antagonization of China, North Korea? Regards, Jason Thornton. Good question, Jason. So, this is the first I've heard of the suggestion that we could say anything we're doing with South Korea military-wise to deter North Korea, could we do it instead with Japan? Now, I don't know technically if it's possible. Like, will that anti-missile system work to protect South Korea if it's in Japan rather than in South Korea? But let's assume it will. Let's assume we could do that. A question I have is, would China just get just as upset as if we had those missiles in Japan as if we had them in South Korea? Would Japan allow it? I don't know. And maybe Japan would allow it. So these are just questions I have because I know so little about the story. So I appreciate you bringing it up. So I guess we'll see what happens. If I see anything in the media about this whole thing about maybe putting the THAAD system in Japan, I will read it because it's an interesting thought, Jason. And you also asked about the B-1s and B-52s that he just deployed to South Korea. I don't know where those are flying exactly. And I have a similar question. I'm hearing from you about this. I'd heard that there was some resources sent there, but did I hear about planes being sent there? I read some story a couple days ago. I can't remember exactly what I read, but I will trust you on this, Jason. But I guess I would have a similar question too, which is whatever military. So let's say we're talking about planes. If those are flying above South Korean airspace or based in South Korea, can they do the same work to protect South Korea if they're in Japan? Does Japan want them there? Is there a problem if Japan has them there? I don't know. So interesting suggestion. I am not an expert enough to be able to give you a great answer to it, but those are some thoughts I have. So I appreciate the email though, Jason. And also, let's see. I think you had something else to say, Jason. Hold on. I know it's here. It is here. Nope, we didn't want that. Sorry, when I figure out how to actually use my email, here we go. There's another email from you, Jason. I can't open it. It's so sad. It's depressing me. Nope, can't open it. It's not working. Let me try this one more time. I apologize. First time I haven't been able to open an email. It's a new first here at Right Side Broadcasting. One last time. Nope, won't open. Well, I tried, Jason. Email it to me later. I'll do my best. Or email it to me again, and I'll open it if you can email it to me. So we have, just to update you, about 4 minutes until the press briefing starts. Today's White House press briefing from Sean Spicer at the White House. We carry them all here at Right Side Broadcasting. We show you the whole press briefing. We do pre-coverage. We do post-coverage. We love doing it. So if you want to try to get in a last-minute comment, I would love to hear from you. Either email me at steve.lookner@rspn.tv or direct message me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Before we go to the briefing, I will give one last encouragement because just say again that we appreciate your support and we cannot stay on the air without your support. We rely on it to be in business and to bring you this kind of coverage of events and coverage of the rally next week. We're going to be at Donald Trump's rally on Wednesday, bringing you live coverage from Nashville, showing you the rally, talking to the crowds, interviewing people in the audience. Excited to do that. But that costs money, obviously, to do. So if any kind of support you can give us, we so appreciate it. keeps us on the air. You can either, if you want to donate to us, you can go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate, or if you're watching this live and that chat room is open, there's a $sign at the bottom of the chat room. You can click on that. Even a small amount is super appreciated. Thank you to the moderators, by the way, for moderating the chat today, as you always do. Really appreciate all your hard work, moderators. Thank you. Let's see also, I forgot, I like to check my Twitter while we're doing the pre-show, as I've said, because, you know, we're on for a while and I might miss something that's actually going on. So let me just real quick see if there's anything there. There was this big viral video that was going around today, which is on the BBC last night. They were interviewing a guy about South Korea, I guess some sort of expert. And he was doing the interview from his, I want to say it was like, it looked like an office, but it turns out it was in his house. But, you know, he was in a suit and tie and like he had all the books in the back and everything. And they're doing this interview. And then during the interview, the door opens and like, it looks like a kid about 3 or 4 years old kind of like struts in like this, like wearing some kind of like funky glasses. And the kid just walks right up to the camera and the guy doing the interview tries to like, doesn't like hard push the kid, but sort of does this with the kid because it was his kid. So he does this and tries to keep the interview going. And then while he's doing this, the kid just stands there. And then the next thing that happens is a baby rolls in. A baby has one of those things where they stand. It's like, I don't even know what it's called, but it's the thing the baby stands in and like they can put their food on it around it. It's like a circle. And so the baby struts in through the door behind it. And it's actually quite a funny clip, but it's one of these things where like everybody was posting about this and I was like, I'm not going to watch this viral video. There's too many viral videos, everybody posting it. And it's like, oh, I just don't want to get involved in viral video land. Then I'll watch it and it won't be that good. It'll just be another thing. But I finally said, you know what? Everybody's posting about it. I'll watch it. And it actually was entertaining. So I hate that I'm recommending a viral video to you, but if you're somebody like me who doesn't usually watch viral videos, you should give this one a try. Go look up baby interview last night and you'll find it. But it's one of the ones where people say, watch this, and it's not that good, but it actually is kind of good. So go watch that if you have an extra 40 seconds. Wow, I've really done it. I recommend a viral video. There you go. Chad Matthew writes in, just one more thought for today. We all hope you are involved at some point in press briefings. Need some balance in there. Not all reporters are attacking Sean Spicer, but one in particular is April Miller. She has a narrative of liberal bias and tries to push the narrative as President Trump said XYZ. Doesn't that make him a racist? That's what I'm talking about for liberal bias. Thanks. Thank you, Chad, for your clarification and for your comment. Appreciate it. So it's 12:20. Well, it's 1:29. Sorry. 1:29 p.m. Eastern Time, 1:30. So we are at the scheduled start time for the briefing. Sometimes these start late. This just happens. I remember yesterday it was starting a little late and Sean Spicer himself tweeted out and he said, hey, we're starting soon, hang tight. That wasn't his exact tweet, but basically what he said. So we will keep going, but at the moment we know this press briefing is starting. Oh, this is interesting. Did he tweet this out? President Trump tweeted out 2 minutes ago, join at Press Secretary Live coming up soon. How fascinating. So President Trump gave a plug for the press briefing. I don't know if has he done that before? This is on the @POTUS Twitter feed. Just 2 minutes ago. He said, join at Press Sec Live coming up soon and gives the link to it. There you go. So that's it. That's fascinating. I don't know if he'd ever done that before. Wow. Let's just see. I'm just checking my Twitter to see if there's anything that came up that I want to mention to you recently. Oh, and Sean Spicer coming up. Sean Spicer himself 14 minutes ago said, coming up just after 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the daily press secretary briefing. Watch live on the White House. So here's I have a theory about this. I'm going to give my theory. But you know what? Before I give my theory, Deplorable Me wrote in. I want to get to Deplorable Me's comment. Deplorable Me says, I am disappointed in Pence saying he wants to use the full force of the law against WikiLeaks if leak is legit. I have not heard that comment yet. I'm not saying he hasn't said it, but that's an interesting comment if he said it, Deplorable Me. And, well, I will say this. Personally, if WikiLeaks broke some law, then I think the they should be prosecuted for it, because I don't think anybody should be above the law. But at the same time, if WikiLeaks didn't break a law, I don't think the government should take action against them just because they're releasing this stuff if they didn't break a law. So I would need to know more about, what the laws are about this kind of stuff. But I understand your thought, because you might be thinking like, and I get this argument. I probably have to think about this more. So perhaps there's some law that WikiLeaks cannot publish classified material that they're given that they know is classified. Now, but let me say this. As to Vice President Pence's comment, if he's the vice president and WikiLeaks is releasing classified information and there's a law against it, I can understand why the vice president would want to say we're going to enforce the law and use the full force of the law against them. Now, it's different being a private citizen, different being the vice president. And I think if the vice president doesn't say we're going to totally enforce the law against WikiLeaks, they would probably get a lot of criticism for that. So I get your point, deplorable me, that an argument can be made that when WikiLeaks releases classified stuff, sometimes it's for the benefit of the United States, and then in a just world, they shouldn't be punished by the United States. Look, this is why people say that some people say Edward Snowden should get a pardon, whereas other people say Edward Snowden should be, they should bring him back here and throw him in jail. So I get both sides of the debate here. But in terms of the vice president's comment, this comment that you're reporting he made, if he made this comment, I can understand why he made it. But I also understand your view as well, deplorable me, so I appreciate you writing in. Let's see. You have Boog Rowe says, yes, President did, and I retweeted it for you. Are you talking about the tweet he just sent out? I think. So thank you, Boog Rowe. Let's see. My theory here. So I was just talking about how Sean Spicer and President Trump both tweeted in the last 15 minutes about the upcoming press briefing. And in both of their tweets, they included the link to the White House feed. Here's my question. Is it possible that they want to let people know more that they have this White House website, whitehouse.gov, where they show live events, and that they're making an organized effort to promote that today? Because both President Trump and Sean Spicer linked to that feed on their site. So maybe they're trying to promote their site, because there's this White House site, and obviously they would like more people to go there and read, what they post about the White House and President Trump and stuff. So perhaps, they've said, hey, when we tweet out and there's an event going on, let's show the link to it that's up at the White House feed, because they both posted that today. So that's just a guess. I don't know. I'm just guessing. That's my theory. Let's see here. So we are at 1:34 p.m. Eastern Time. We know there's definitely a press briefing happened, because President Trump and Sean Spicer have just tweeted out about it recently. And we're just waiting for Sean Spicer to get on the stage, get up to the podium. Is it really a stage? I don't know if we call it a stage, but get up to the podium and start. As soon as that happens, we will let you know. Until then, feel free to write in more comments. Appreciate all the comments and questions today. You can write into my Twitter, direct message me there at Lookner, at Lookner, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. And again, if you want to follow Right Side Broadcasting on Twitter, get all the latest updates from Right Side Broadcasting at RSB Network. And to repeat, if you just joined the broadcast, we will be covering President Trump's Nashville rally live next Wednesday from Nashville. It's 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central is when the rally itself starts. But we will be on hours before then. We'll give you a more exact time when we have it. We'll tweet it out to you. But you can watch it. We're going to have pre-coverage. We're going to have post-coverage. I will be there. As I've said before, I really want to try. We interviewed people in the crowd. If we've watched this, if you've watched our rally coverage, we do that. We're the only ones who do that. And we talk to people who are in the crowd at the rally. But at the same time, I'm going to try to do this thing where we talk to people in line before the rally, if we can set that up, because people get in line for hours before, and I would love to hear about those people who are so enthusiastic that they just want to get in line and just sit there and wait for several hours before to get a good spot at the rally. So And we're going to try to talk to some of those people too, because I don't, that's a fun thing to do. We didn't get to do it in Melbourne, so we're going to try to do it this next rally. So hope you can join us for our coverage of that. Vita Marie has one more comment. Vita Marie says, I agree with deplorable me. I feel corruption needs to be shown so that way we can fix it. So deplorable, what you're saying, Vita Marie, is you agree that that it sounds like you're supporting WikiLeaks, what they're doing, and you don't think the full extent of the law should be used against them. So thank you, Vita Marie, for your input on that. By the way, if you're into WikiLeaks stuff, wait, am I going to say this? This isn't. I just had a bit of a brain freeze. My point was more, if you're into like cyber weapons and stuff, there's a really good documentary that came out a couple years ago about Stuxnet, which is the virus that supposedly the American and Israeli governments sent into the computers at the Iran nuclear facilities a couple of years ago, and it like blew up a bunch of their centrifuges, and eventually it was found out. But it's a really fascinating story. Neither of these governments, America or Israel, has ever acknowledged openly that this was their virus they sent out. Or is virus the right word? I'm assuming virus is the right word. But it was basically kind of like a cyber weapon, nobody's officially taken credit for this, but this documentary is quite interesting. It's called 0 Days, I believe, and Alex Gibney is the guy who directed it. I watched it a couple months ago. I found it fascinating. It talks about the development of this program. It talks about how they found out about it, how it worked. So if you're into that kind of stuff, it's a really cool documentary. You can find it somewhere or other. Richard P. says, sounds like President Trump will be taking over the press conference today. Are you saying that, Richard P., because of his tweet that he sent out promoting the press conference, or are you saying it because of other information? I think it would be fascinating if President Trump appeared at the press briefing. Look, it's not out of the realm of possibility for him, I don't think, but Richard, do you have any information that you're going on, or are you just making a guess or a prediction? I'd like to know. Oh, I also haven't talked about if you want to get cool Right Side Broadcasting gear, there's a place you can get it now. You can go to www.teepublic.com, teepublic.com. Search for RSBN. You'll find all kinds of RSBN gear. Hoodies, sweatshirts, T-shirts, men's and women's versions, all different colors, mugs. Go check it out if you'd like. Oh, and I also, somebody wrote in and reminded me of this, and I forgot to do this. Who was it who wrote me this to say? I forget who it was. But somebody wrote me. Can I find it? Can't find it. So one of you wrote me and said, Epsilona A. Epsilona 01 said, don't forget about tonight's shows and promote them. And you are right. I forgot about tonight's shows. So we have tonight Nick Fuentes at 7 Eastern. Is Mike Cernovich on at 8 Eastern? Am I getting this right? Somebody out there, Jake, can shout to me if I'm getting it right. I'm not sure. Yes, so Mike Cernovich at 8 Eastern and Wayne Dupree after Mike Cernovich at 9 Eastern. I'm assuming I got that all right. They'll correct me if I didn't. So Nick Fuentes, America First with Nick Fuentes, The Right Mindset with Mike Cernovich, and Wayne Dupree Show. All tonight. You can watch them all in a row if you'd like, or you can watch them after to your heart's content, because it's the internet and you can watch stuff after. So those are all out there. Check them out tonight. Whatever the news is today, they will be talking about tonight. Enjoy those shows. And let's see. Oh, we have another comment here. This is from Dejected Prescription. And Dejected Prescription says, the hypocrisy is astounding. This is a reply. All right, so Catherine Timpf from Fox, she's on Fox a bunch. She tweeted out a thing, Pelosi letter to Speaker Ryan. So I guess Nancy Pelosi today said in a letter to Speaker Ryan, the American people and members have a right to know the full impact of this legislation, the health bill, before any vote in committee or by the whole House. Dejected Prescription is saying the hypocrisy is astounding because Pelosi famously said, I believe the quote was something like, we had to vote on the bill before we could see we had to pass the bill before we could see what was in it. What was that Pelosi quote? I'm looking it up. Pass bill before what's in it. I forget the exact quote. Let's see if I can find it. The famous, we have to pass the health care bill so you can find out what's in it. So Dejected Prescription was writing in the hypocrisy about Nancy Pelosi's letter to Paul Ryan today. Thank you, Dejected Prescription. I don't even know if you might have just been posting that to me and not even specifically for this pre-show, but I read it on the pre-show anyway. So thank you. Richard P. says, I have no knowledge that Trump will take over the presser, but he has done it before, so based on that, I think it's a good bet. Has he ever, Richard, taken over one of Sean Spicer's press briefings? I don't know. I don't recall this. Maybe I'm forgetting, Richard, but thank you for writing in. Feel free to write in again. We are waiting anytime now. Sean Spicer's press briefing will begin. We're going to bring it to you live. We will go to it live as soon as it starts. It was a little late yesterday. It was about, I think, 50 minutes started late. So maybe it's going to start about 50 minutes late today, which would be in about 2 minutes from now. We have our eyes on it. We're going to bring it to you as soon as it happens. And we know it is happening. Let's see. Richard P. also says this. Gee, Nancy, we have to pass it before. Gee, Nancy, we have to pass it before we can know what's in it. Question mark. So I think you're making fun. Oh, are we going to the briefing? We're going to the briefing. Enjoy the briefing. See you after for the post show.
Serious. There he is.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Good to see you all. Good afternoon. 2 more days until the work week's over. I still have full attribution to Rahm Emanuel for that one. As many of you know, today is day 50 of President Trump's administration. There's a lot to talk about and a lot that's gotten done. I also want to acknowledge that today's also Brian's birthday. So happy birthday to Brian. I'll let you guys celebrate amongst yourselves afterwards. In just these first 50 days, the president has taken many key steps towards delivering on the pledges he made to the American people as a candidate. He's jump-started job creation, not only because of his executive actions, but through the surge of economic confidence and optimism that has been inspired since his election. President Trump knows exactly what businesses need to thrive and grow, therefore adding well-paying and steady jobs to the market. Obviously, we're very pleased to see the jobs report that came out this morning. It's great news for American workers. During the first full month of the Trump presidency, the economy added 235,000 new jobs, and the unemployment rate ticked down to 4.7%. Notably, we also saw significant growth in the construction, manufacturing, and mining sectors. The unemployment rate ticked down and labor force participation rate ticked up, showing that even as more people are re-entering the job market due to the economic optimism that I spoke about, businesses are continuing to grow and create new jobs. The President looks forward to continuing his work with the private sector to clear roadblocks to key infrastructure projects, withdraw from job-killing trade deals like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and slash the bureaucratic red tape that makes additional hiring difficult for American businesses. He has taken action to ensure the safety and security of the United States homeland, its borders, and its people. He has proposed great rebuilding of our nation's military, following a full review of our military readiness and supported by a $54 billion budget increase. He's implemented new protections to prevent people from coming into our country that seek to do us harm. As a result of the presidential memorandum that he signed on January 28th, the President has received a plan to defeat ISIS designed by the Secretary of Defense and the National Security Team. Just as he has promised during the campaign, he has made enforcing our nation's immigration laws a top priority, signing executive orders that start work on a southern border wall, that enhance the public safety of Americans through ordering the strong enforcement of immigration laws that are already on the books, halting funding to jurisdictions in the United States that don't comply with federal immigration rules, and directing the Department of Homeland Security to hire a combined 15,000 new officers and agents to support the system and protect the nation. He's outlined an aggressive legislative agenda that includes tax reform that brings relief to small business and the middle class, a massive commitment to infrastructure investment that will generate jobs and rebuild our nation, and repealing and replacing Obamacare. In fact, just this week, he began working with Congress directly on repealing the worst parts of Obamacare and replacing it with the American Health Care Act. And this particular legislation is just one prong in the President's comprehensive approach to reforming our healthcare system. The administration is also taking additional steps to stabilize health insurance markets and start bringing down costs for the millions of Americans that have been affected by Obamacare, such as stabilizing insurance markets through regulatory reform, including the ability to purchase insurance across state lines, providing individuals and families with access to lower cost options by loosening the restrictions on the financial structure of plans offered through the Obamacare exchanges. And finally, the President's committed to working with Congress on additional legislation that won't be subject to the budget reconciliation process, that will allow the purchase of health insurance across state lines, that will streamline the process of the FDA to bring down the cost of critical medicine, to allow for the expansion of health savings accounts, to allow more Americans to use their funds for more healthcare-related costs, and so much more. There's a one-page fact sheet that lays out the three prongs of the President's plan to repeal and replace. All Americans can see that one-pager that's available at whitehouse.gov, repeal and replace. Feel free to download it and share it this weekend. This administration's already looking forward to all that we've been planning to accomplish in the days and weeks ahead. You should have a document outlining in each of your email boxes of the President's major actions during these 51st days. We've made it available to the public as well at whitehouse.gov. In terms of the schedule for his 50th day in office, the President will be having a series of meetings and calls, moving even further along on some of the most significant campaign promises that he made to the American people. After receiving his daily intelligence briefing this morning, the President led a healthcare discussion with key House committee chairs. The President thanked and congratulated the chairs on successfully ushering the American Health Care Act through the first phase of the legislative process. He noted that he was pleased to see the bill pass through both committees, the Energy and Commerce Committee and the Ways and Means Committee, with unanimous Republican support. They discussed working together on additional legislation to further work towards turning healthcare into a system that works for every individual and family and business. Together, the President and Republicans in Congress will act decisively to keep their promise to the American people. In attendance at the meeting, including the Vice President, were Congresswoman Black, the chair of the House Budget Committee, Congressman Brady, the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, Congressman Walden, the chair of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, Congresswoman Fox, the chairman of the House Education and Workforce Committee, and Chairman Goodlatte of the Judiciary Committee. In addition to this Hill outreach, senior officials at the Department of Health and Human Services have met with the American Medical Association to discuss the bill and will be meeting with additional stakeholders in the coming days. The President is committed to making the system better, and that includes making sure his team hears feedback from all interested groups in pursuit of a more affordable and accessible health care. This afternoon, the President had a call with President Abbas, the Palestinian Authority. We'll have a readout of that call soon. The the President had lunch with Secretary of State Tillerson, and this afternoon the President will meet with Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Ben Carson. He looks forward to discussing HUD's mission to create strong, sustainable, and inclusive communities with quality, affordable housing, especially the ways in which we can partner with the private sector to come up with innovative solutions to turn our public housing system around and empower our struggling communities. Looking ahead to the weekend, the President will spend this weekend here at the White House in a series of meetings with his team. The Vice President's office has already announced the details of his trip to Louisville, Kentucky, where he will participate in listening sessions with small businesses and job creators throughout the community, and then joined by Governor Bevin, we'll hear from local small businesses. The Vice President will discuss the President's economic agenda, especially the repeal and replacement aspects of Obamacare and how it will reduce the burden on small businesses. He will then conclude with formal remarks at the Train Parts and Distribution Center. Also coming up, Judge Gorsuch's confirmation hearings will begin on March 20th. Yesterday, the American Bar Association reported their committee determined that by unanimous vote, Judge Gorsuch was given a, quote, well-qualified mark for the Supreme Court. The President looks forward to seeing Judge Gorsuch receive a speedy and fair hearing and an up-and-down vote on the Senate floor. Finally, the President's weekly address is out. It discusses Women's History Month and his plans to repeal and replace Obamacare. It aired this morning on Facebook Live. It is now available to watch on YouTube and whitehouse.gov. Obviously, I encourage everyone to go check it out. And with that, I'd be glad to take your questions. John Roberts.
I was going to say, your pen's upside down.
John Roberts always helping with the fashion tips.
But it's still upside down.
Is this a stress call, Sean?
I appreciate that. Thank you. No, there's no promos. John, now on to your questions. Thank you.
Our involvement of sending Rangers and Marines into Syria marks a dramatic change in our presence on the ground there. And I'm wondering, how much autonomy is the President giving General James Mattis to involve U.S. forces on the ground in Syria?
A U.S. Marine artillery unit and a team of Rangers have recently been positioned in Syria to provide a combined joint task force operation Inherent Resolve, the commander the agility to expedite the destruction of ISIS in Raqqa in particular. The exact numbers and locations of the forces are still a sensitive order to protect the location of the forces, but there will be approximately an additional 400 enabling forces deployed under existing authorities for a temporary period to enable our Syrian partnered forces to accelerate the defeat of ISIS, specifically in Raqqa. I think, as I've mentioned before, one of the things that the President has ensured is that the commanders have the flexibility to do what they need to fulfill the mission. The President is obviously, as Commander-in-Chief, made aware and signs off on all of those missions. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the generals to execute their mission to make sure that we continue to defeat ISIS and protect the nation.
Now, our involvement there really sort of complicates the whole picture because we're aligned with the Kurds, but then at the same time, a NATO ally, Turkey, sees the Kurds as the enemy. And then there's what happens with Russia and its involvement with the Syrian government. So the big problem with Iraq was we never planned for the day after.
Right.
So what are the plans for the day after here when Raqqa falls? Who occupies it?
Well, one of the things that I mentioned in the script that is part of what the President has done during his first 50 days is issue an executive order on January 28th for the Secretary of Defense to submit a comprehensive plan in consultation with the Joint Chiefs and other members of the National Security Team to defeat ISIS. That is part of that plan. And so I think you are seeing a comprehensive approach to not only how we're going to engage in Syria, but the total defeat and elimination of ISIS. So that is part of an ongoing process that the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and others have been involved in briefing the President.
But does the President have an idea of who should occupy Raqqa? Should it be Kurdish
Again, I'm not gonna-
forces? Should it be a
I'll-
coalition?
I think
Should
I-
American forces stay there?
Right. I think that as we devolve that plan, I'll have more for you on that. I think you've already killed one question Friday. But we're gonna get back to it. John Carl, one question Friday.
Okay, I'll make it one. Sean, the chair and ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee have asked the Justice Department to turn over any information that they have that there was any wiretapping of President-elect Trump, candidate Trump, Trump Tower. If there is no evidence that any wiretapping took place, Will the president apologize to
Let's-
President Obama for making such a serious
I
charge?
think let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think it's important to see where that goes, and I don't want to prejudge their work at this time. Jim.
But there's no evidence. I mean, what's he?
But I think you're asking, well, what if there's evidence? Then I'm not going to get into a series of hypotheticals prejudging the outcome of a report or an investigation that hasn't occurred yet. I think once that's done, we'll respond appropriately. Jim.
Thank you, Sean. Senator Cory Gardner was reported by Politico yesterday to have said he doesn't believe that a $14 billion wall along the Mexican border is the best way to provide border security. Does the White House see support for the border wall weakening
No.
in Congress?
The president was very clear. That was something that he campaigned on and promised the American people as an effort to both protect our national security and our economic security. And he's going to fulfill that pledge. He's already started to work with the Department of Homeland Security on both the plans and the funding mechanism, and the bidding and the RFP process will roll out slowly, or shortly, I should say. But that's a pledge that he intends to maintain. John Bennett.
Action on the Hill, of course, with healthcare lately, but April 28th is right around the corner. Government funding expires. Given that during the transition period, you guys asked for a short-term CR so you could weigh in once you were in office, what's the White House doing right now to avoid a shutdown? I talked to some sources, they couldn't point to specific talks. So what's the state of play there?
Well, Director Mulvaney is going to release his budget on the 16th. That's the first step in working with them to get the budget under control. We're approaching $20 trillion of our debt, and I think we need to get spending under control. And so part of funding the government goes hand in hand with keeping a track of what we're spending on and how we're spending on and what our priorities are. We've begun that pass-back process that we talked about internally within the executive branch. Director Mulvaney has had several conversations with members on the Hill on both sides, and he's going to continue to have them. I know the Vice President has been actively engaged as well. But to your question, I mean, that's part of the process. We need to release a budget first about what our priorities are for the coming fiscal year, and then make sure that we do what we can going forward. But this goes hand in hand with that.
Be to finish out the current fiscal
I understand.
year. So
right, you're talking. That's fiscal year 17, but I think they go hand in hand. I think you need to close out FY17, and then I think our budget lays out where we want to go in FY18. And I think once we have a handle on FY18, we can start to backfill 17.
ask, you want cuts for the rest of 17?
I'm not going to. I appreciate we're not having that discussion here. John Gizzi.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean. And I will honor the one question Friday.
Thank you.
The president has said in the past that he welcomes compromise and is very open to compromise on the immigration legislation that's coming up. This morning, when she spoke at the Christian Science Monitor press breakfast, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi said that she would like to see the comprehensive immigration package that passed the Senate but was stopped in the House brought back. And that was her version of a compromise on immigration. What's the administration's position on what former Speaker and Minority
I think
Leader...
you're referring to the Gang of Eight bill, correct?
That's correct.
I think the president's been very clear during the campaign trail that that's not a bill that he supports. But he looks forward to engaging with members to find a way forward to fix our broken immigration system. That bill in particular, I think, is a non-starter. It was a non-starter when it came out the first time. I think it continues to be a non-starter, but the president recognizes that the system is broken and that he wants to work with Congress to fix it. Hunter.
Thank you, Sean. Does the White House believe there's such a thing as the deep state that's actively working to undermine the president?
Well, I think that there's no question when you have 8 years of one party in office that there are people who stay in government, who affiliated with, joined and continue to espouse the agenda of the previous administration. So I don't think it should come as any surprise that there are people that burrowed into government during 8 years of the last administration and, may have believed in that agenda and can want to continue to seek it. I don't think that should come as a surprise to anyone.
Will the director of the CIA or the DNI have a presidential mandate to seek these people out and fire them or purge them from the government?
The CIA does not. That's not part of the CIA's mandate under any circumstances. So no on that one. Blake.
Thanks. The DNC just put out a statement a little while ago saying it is President Obama who deserves the credit for the February jobs numbers.
I'm sure they did.
My question to you, how much do you feel that President Trump should be credited for that, and how would you characterize the economy that President Trump was handed over by President Obama?
Well, look, numbers are going to go up and down. We recognize that. But I think there's no question when you look at the CEOs that hire people and the CEOs that have talked about the investment that they want to make in America, you can look back over the last several administrations. I don't believe I've ever seen the number of CEOs and businesses come out and talk about investments and continuing investments and the expansion of investments or hiring based on the vision and agenda of an administration the way they have in this one. And so it's not just a question of what we believe. I think if you look at the automakers, the other manufacturers, and frankly some of the service industries that have come out and talked about the investment that they're going to make or the continuation of a project that they had going or the movement of a manufacturing plant or a job investment. Those speak for themselves. It's not a question of what we believe. I think it's a question of the commitment that U.S. manufacturers and job creators and businesses are making because they want to buy into the president's agenda and vision to create a more tax and regulatory, business-friendly environment to grow here. And I think that those speak for themselves.
Do you believe, though, that that the policies already have had an impact?
Absolutely. Look at the confidence indexes. They're all going to the top. I think the stock market has generated over $3 billion of additional wealth since he was elected. There are several economic indicators that show signs of strength because of the president's vision and agenda. And I don't think that's just any secret. I mean, when you talk to the economists, when you talk to business leaders, they have confidence in the president's agenda that it will yield for a more favorable business climate to hire more Americans, to expand the manufacturing base in America, to make us more competitive around the globe. And so, I do believe that, but I don't think it's a question of what I believe or what the administration believes. I think if you look at what outside economists and what business leaders do, they confirm that. Amen.
Thanks, John. In the past, the president has referred to particular job reports as phony or totally fiction. Does the president believe that this jobs report was accurate and a fair way to measure the economy?
Yeah, I talked to the president prior to this, and he said, to quote him very clearly, they may have been phony in the past, but it's very real now. Sarah.
Thanks, John. Could you clear up what appears to be some tension between what you said yesterday about when the administration or the president was made aware of General Flynn's foreign lobbying ties, and the AP reporting today that the transition team was informed of Flynn's potential need to register?
So there's a big difference between when he filed, which was the other day, 2 days ago, and what happened then. What the AP is reporting, just so we're clear, is that a personal lawyer of General Flynn's contacted a transition lawyer and asked for guidance on what he should or should not do. The lawyer was instructed that that wasn't the role of the transition, and that it was up to the personal lawyer to work with the appropriate authorities or subject matter experts to determine what was appropriate and what was not appropriate in terms of filing. But this was a personal matter. It's a business matter. It's not something that would be appropriate for a government entity to give someone guidance on when they should file as an individual, as a private citizen. That was the guidance that was given, which is consistent with what should be done. And so I don't think it should be a shock to anybody that if you're asked a government lawyer what you should do in your private capacity as a citizen, they're going to tell you should consult experts in that area to determine what you should or should not do.
That advice the transition was aware of that advice. Why wasn't that then just the president made aware that recommendation had been given to his national security advisor?
There are tons of individuals that consult with the lawyers and with ethics experts and say, I own this stock, well, I have to sell it. I own a business, I own this house. And for the most part, they're given guidance as to, hey, go seek professional help, consult with this entity, consult with a lawyer. I mean, it's almost like, asking someone for tax advice, calling, and if you call the IRS and say, hey, I want to know what I should do with this, they will tell you to consult a tax attorney. That's not the job of a government official, is to tell you what you should or should not do in your capacity as a private citizen. And so that's a vastly different scenario that any, whether you, regardless of what department you call in government, If you call the Department of Education and ask them about education standards, they'll probably refer you to a local entity or to a teacher if you're asking about your own child. That's not why government officials, they're very clear about the line between private action and government action. Jordan.
Thanks, Sean. Does the president agree with House conservatives that the sunset date for the Medicaid expansion should be moved up to the end of next year?
Well, I think that the bill that is before the House right now, the reconciliation piece, and again, I cannot reiterate it enough, is part of a three-pronged process. But the current process does several things. Number one, it's the first time that you're going to have a full addressing of an entitlement like this in decades. It is actually a very, very good thing for conservatives when you look at how we're going to address Medicaid and an entitlement that many conservatives have fought for years need to be addressed. But that being said, the president's also been very clear through all of the discussions, and I've commented on that throughout the week, that as he meets with members of Congress and outside groups, that if someone's got an idea that can make this legislation more accessible, give more choice to the American people, drive down costs, make it more patient-centric, he wants to listen to it. But I think right now that's where the bill stands. We're going to continue to listen and work with members of the House and then eventually the Senate. And so I don't want to prejudge what the process itself, but the bill was crafted in a way that I think represents the president's thinking and in a very smart way of addressing entitlements and going forward. Francesco.
Just a quick pin in it. The president is willing to negotiate on the sunset of the expansion of Medicaid.
Right. Right now, the date that's in the bill is what the president supports. He is willing to listen to individuals on different aspects of the bill that might make it, that might achieve the goals that he set out. But it's not a question of negotiation. We have a date in the bill, and that's the date in the bill. But I think as the bill continues to work its way through the House, and that goes for Speaker Ryan. He's got members that are approaching him with ideas, and I'm sure he's listening to them as well. Senator McConnell's probably dealing with the same issue in the Senate. And that's the way that the process is going to work. And I've made it very clear since the get-go that this process is going to be one where we're going to take the best ideas, we're going to listen to individuals, and try to make sure that we achieve the goals that the president has laid out and the principles that he has laid out. Francesca.
Thank you, Sean. Piggybacking off John, at a breakfast this morning, the same one he referenced, Nancy Pelosi also said it couldn't possibly be true of the president's allegations against the former president because that is not how our system works. She also said Obama would not do that, and it would be a waste of time for the House Intelligence Committee to investigate that allegation. Does the White House have any evidence to refute House Minority Leader and former Speaker Pelosi's claim? And could you explain why the president hasn't asked the FBI chief about this directly?
I think we spoke very clearly about what we'd like to happen last Sunday, and I'm going to reiterate it. We believe that the House and Senate Intelligence Committee have the appropriate forum and process and staff to look into this matter and report back.
Sean, on Fleeing.
Yeah.
Can you say that the president was informed at all about this arrangement?
No.
The need to register as a foreign agent?
No.
And then did this set off any alarm bells?
Just so we're clear, you wouldn't. The General Flynn filed with the Department of Justice 2 days ago. How would anyone know that he was going to? I mean, that's sort of like asking.
What about the need to file?
That's up to his personal lawyer. I mean, again, each person that goes through the process in government seeks counsel in many cases regarding the assets they own and the activities they conducted as to what they have to do or not do. But this is something that, it's like asking whether someone needed to file, if they had a client, whether or not they have to file a lobbying disclosure form. That's not up for us to determine. That's up for them and their counsel to determine if they engaged in activities in the past or whatever it is, or if a doctor needed to go and up their certification. That is not up for the government to determine. There are certain private citizens' activities that you conduct and you seek counsel on or professional advice. That's not up to the government, and that's exactly how the system works.
But how did that not raise a red flag? I mean, you have an attorney.
You already got your question, John. John, we're doing one question.
But this is an
Hold
important
on.
point.
No, it's not, John.
Because you have an attorney calling the transition saying that the person who is in line to be the national security advisor may need to register as a foreign agent, and that doesn't raise a red flag.
It's not a question of raising a red flag, John. It's a question of whether or not they gave them the advice that they're supposed to, which is it is not up to them to make decisions as to what you need to do or not do. As you know, there are certain activities that fall under each of these requirements as far as what the threshold is, what activities, who the funding source was, et cetera, et cetera. It is not up to, nor is it appropriate, nor is it legal for the government to start going into private citizens seeking advice and telling them what they have to register or not. That would be the equivalent of walking through someone's tax return and saying that's not a deduction that you should take. That is. That's why when you contact these agencies, they will tell you you should seek counsel or professional advice or expertise in whatever matter it is. That is not up to them to determine. Plain and simple. Glenn. Hold on, John.
Moving beyond the legal question here.
Thank you.
Just to follow up with John. Moving beyond the legal question here, this is an issue of judgment about who you guys wanted in your administration. If there were published reports that your potential national security advisor had dealings with the government of Turkey, a controversial regime at this moment in time. Congressman Cummings sent a letter to Mike Pence during the transition informing him of this and raising a red flag. Mr. Pence was on television, I believe yesterday, saying twice that he had no knowledge of that letter.
That's right. No, that's not. Hold on. Stop. Hold on. No. But before you accuse the vice president of certain things, no. What he said was that he was not aware of the filing. Just so we're clear, and he wasn't. Thank you. Go on.
Just in terms of the larger question here, forget about filling out forms and the legalisms here. What does this say about the transition team's judgment about still appointing him as national security advisor when you had knowledge of this information?
No, but you're asking me, forget about the legalisms. That's what we ask people to do, is follow the law. You can't forget about the legalisms. That's what you said. And what I'm saying is, that's what we did. They consulted a lawyer, which everyone who had something of, is advised to do. That lawyer consulted the transition lawyer, who said it is your job to consult the appropriate lawyers.
Beyond the legal issues. I'm saying in terms of, we're moving beyond the issue of the papers here. We're talking about the judgment that the president, the vice president, and your team made to select this man as national security advisor when you had information that he had these dealings with Turkey. Why did you guys still make that decision?
What dealings are you referring to? The fact that he had a client. He was also the head of the Department of the Defense Intelligence Agency, unbelievably qualified, 40 years in the military with impeccable credentials. I mean, so what is it that what is exactly are you getting at? Because so far he has impeccable credentials. He had a stellar career in the military, widely respected. And I think for you to sort of impugn his integrity.
Pence said that yesterday, that he wouldn't have that.
But there was no disclosure at the time. And the question is that if his counsel worked with whomever he worked with and determined that he didn't, that's up to him. But it was up to him. The burden is on the individual to seek the legal advice or professional expertise to decide what they have to file and not. I mean, we could literally have a hypothetical question about somebody who made an inappropriate filing on their tax returns, or or a professional qualification. At the end of the day, when people present it with you, they are advised to seek expertise and counsel and legal advice about what's appropriate and what's not. That is not up to the transition attorneys to go through someone's livelihood and determine what they need to seek. They were given the proper legal advice at the time, which was to seek expertise in that matter. He had already obtained counsel.
Transition officials, let me just sort of clarify. The transition officials were not overly concerned by his relationship.
That's not a question of overly concerned, Glenn. The question is, did they provide him the avenue that they were supposed to, which is, did they tell him to seek counsel? And they did. And that's what's supposed to happen. That's it, plain and simple. Yes.
Sean and Simple, I guess the question for you very simply would be then right now, does this raise concerns that there may be other members of this administration or other members that served in the transition that were or are currently lobbying on behalf of foreign governments right now that may be advising the President of the United States?
No, look, I think we trust people to fill out the appropriate forms that they need to. And in this case, and the President acted accordingly back in the thing, and he made the right call then.
He may have been taking actions, though. He may have been
But Peter, you're asking me, this is like saying, can you tell me that the executives at NBC News have gone through every single person's and reporter's background? No, I understand that. But we trust people to fill out the forms that they're required to do so in an honest and legal manner. And in this case, he retroactively filed the forms that he was supposed to do, but we advised him to do what the legal and proper thing was, and that's the right thing for this administration. So we did the right thing then, And we expect every employee to follow the law. This president, when it comes to ethics, when it comes to lobbying, he instituted a 5-year ban. He banned people. He has ran on a commitment to drain the swamp. He has been very committed to making sure that we institute high standards here and that we're held to them. And so at the end of the day, when he found out that General Flynn had betrayed the trust of the vice president back in the day, he let him go. The president has high standards for everyone that works in this administration. So the answer to your question is, if somebody does something that is not in keeping with the president's standards that he set for every single person in the administration, they will be let go.
So you have full faith in all those people that are advising the president right now?
I believe that everybody has done what has legally been required of them, but I can't tell you that every single person has done everything. I can tell you the president has made clear to every person in this administration, you are expected to live up to the high standards that he has set for them, and that if you don't, you will be dismissed.
Sean, for the removal of the South Korea's president, what's the reaction of the White House to it? And also, we know that there will be a presidential election very soon in the South Korea, and we know several leading candidates. They prefer less confrontation with DPRK and also oppose the deployment of a THAAD system. Does the White House look into the impact of the election might bring?
Well, I believe they have to have an election within 60 days. There's an acting president who we have strong relationships with, and we will continue to work with South Korea. They are both an ally and a friend in the region. This is obviously an issue that we continue to keep up with on the developments there. It's a domestic issue in which the United States takes no position in the outcome of that election. It's up to the Korean people and their democratic institutions to determine the future of their country. The United States continues to be a steadfast ally, friend, and partner to the Republic of Korea, and that's it.
Obviously, you guys were excited by the jobs report, but maybe a little too excited. Both you and the president tweeting within an hour of the jobs data coming out, which is a violation of federal rules. So I'm wondering, I guess, both if there is counseling in viewing the president's future, but also what you say generally to critics who say the risk of doing this is politicizing what should be kind of nonpartisan by the books.
No, what I understand is that rule was instituted to deal with market fluctuations. I could be wrong, but I believe that's why it was instituted. I think tweeting out, great way to start a Friday, here are the actual numbers that you all have reported, is a bit silly. I mean, don't make me make the podium move. I mean, honest to God, like every reporter here reported out that we had 235,000 jobs, 4.7. There isn't a TV station that didn't go live to it. So to tweet out, great way to start a Friday, I think, yes, the president was excited to see more Americans back to work. I don't think that's exactly a market disruption. I think that there's a lot of excitement in this country when we look at the policies that the president has instituted to help put more Americans back to work. So, I mean, I understand the rule, but let's...
Sure, the Obama White House, for instance, went out of their way not to comment in that hour-long period. They would rearrange the president's schedule around it. I mean, it was something that they...
I get it. And I think there's a difference...
Going forward, yeah.
It's not about commenting. I think it's one thing to give analysis and whatever, literally tweeting out great news. I think, yes, we're excited that when the president and the rest of the team saw the news this morning, as reported on every television station, Twitter, the internet, and every major news site in the country and around the world, we're excited to see so many Americans back to work. So I apologize if we were a little excited, and we're so glad to see so many fellow Americans back to work. But that's Ashley.
Sean, Congressman Cummings' letter to the Vice President in November did lay out that General Flynn was being paid to lobby for Turkish interests during the campaign. Why did that not raise a flag?
It's not a question of raising a flag. Remember, I think we keep forgetting something. His attorney then went to a transition attorney who was told, you need to seek counsel on this and get further guidance. That's the job. It's not a question of raised flags. It's not for us to adjudicate whether or not someone needs to file under, the Lobbying Disclosure Act, the FAR Registration Act. That's not the job of a transition attorney. It's to tell them, to seek additional counsel or to explain to them where to find that information, not to tell them what to do or not to do.
But I'm asking about the vice president specifically, not saying you should go to this attorney or giving legal advice, but why, when this information was brought to the vice president's attention, didn't he raise questions, bring it to the president, look into it further?
Because I think it's fairly simple to say, why didn't this occur? We're going through several people. The answer is, did they seek the appropriate professional advice and counsel? And they did, and that's the answer. Alexis.
I have a healthcare question for you.
Okay.
Aren't you relieved? Would
Makes me
the
feel
president
better.
be willing to sign legislation? Is he flexible about the refundable tax credit portion of the House bill? Would he be willing to sign legislation that voided that particular provision? Because, as you know, conservatives are concerned that that's an additional entitlement.
I think that more and more as the president talks to members of Congress and outside groups, number one, I think they're excited to understand the totality of this, and I think he addresses this in the weekly address that you can find at whitehouse.gov, that continues to explain the comprehensive aspect of this, our reconciliation piece, the administrative piece that Secretary Price will institute, and then the additional legislation, buying health care across state lines, allowing small businesses to pool their things, allowing health savings accounts to expand, the streamlining of the federal, the FDA, going after medical malpractice, all those things that bring costs down. But as I've noted before, I mean, people have to remember that if you get your health care through your employer, which the majority of Americans do, you are not taxed on that. Your employer's not taxed on it. It is fairly inadequate and unbalanced for small business owners, ranchers and farmers, sole proprietors, to have to face a disproportionate tax burden because they're not a big employer. I think this is something that conservatives should be embracing, and I think the more that they understand the comprehensive nature of this, they are beginning to support more.
So the president wants it to stay, the refundable tax credit provisions.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, there were 54 House Republicans that wrote a letter to the White House asking about why IRS Commissioner John Koskinen is still in his job. Would you have any response to that?
I don't. I'd refer you to the Department of Treasury on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. The other day, the president tweeted that for the past 8 years during the Obama presidency, Russia, quote, ran over the United States and, in particular, picked off Crimea and added missiles, which the president described in his tweet as weak. Given that he seems to be focused on Crimea, at least as far as his tweet is concerned, will the president use the authority and funding granted him in the NDAA to send lethal defensive weapons to Ukraine, as has been called for by the House and Senate Armed Services Committee chairmen, and was in both party platforms, although the Republican language was watered down? And if he's not going to, I did ask you this about several weeks ago when Senator McCain sent a letter asking for this, if the president doesn't want to do it, is that because he would rather focus his efforts with Russia on partnering to try to defeat ISIS?
Well, I think Ambassador Haley's noted at the UN that any attempt to undermine sanctions that currently exist because of the annexation of Crimea will remain in place until that issue is resolved. I'm not going to. The president, when it comes to his overall negotiating strategy, has made it very clear in a variety of circumstances that his philosophy is not one that says, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. He holds his cards close to his vest to maximize his negotiating strategy.
Why would sending weapons to Ukraine have anything to do with sanctions?
Right, I'm not going to get into the president's negotiating strategy. I will tell you that as he continues to engage with the president of Russia and Secretary Tillerson, we're not ready. Brian, it's your birthday. You got a question.
Going back to my staff, we've got about several dozen emails. We talked to congressmen this morning. We're getting these emails saying, if you're going to repeal and replace Obamacare, why not give everybody what Congress and senators get? Can you address that since Congress won't?
Well, I think part of what we're trying to do, someone asked the other day about federal benefits. Right now, a third of the counties around our country have one provider. That's not choice. I think the president understands that very clearly, and that's frankly why he's pushing the American healthcare state. Why we're doing this is that so many Americans have no choice, and that he wants there to be greater choice and lower cost. By doing the stuff that we're doing, especially the the third prong of this, allowing competition over state lines, taking the government mandates away from what they have to include, that's really going to institute more choice. There will be more options. If you remember, prior to Obamacare, you could go out on the open market and go from a variety of different options and tailor what you or your family needed based on the conditions that you sought or the deductible that you wanted. And choice dried up with Obamacare. I think that's the point, though, is that if you want more of that kind of a system, then this is the bill and the legislation and the comprehensive approach that you should be supporting.
But specifically, the perception that somehow Congress, senators and congressmen get better care than the rest of us. Can you address that?
Well, that's what, yes, I think that's why we're trying to pass it the way we are. We want more choice. We want more competition. We want lower costs. The American people deserve a better healthcare system, and that's what this president is pushing for. Margaret.
Sean, did the White House sign off on Secretary Tillerson's decision not to take the press with him on what should be an important trip to Asia and the growing North Korean threat? And what are his marching orders? You've talked a lot about the flexibility the president has given to his generals. What flexibility is he given for diplomatic initiatives to his Secretary of State? As
I mentioned at the beginning, the president was having lunch with Secretary Tillerson. I know that the trip was one of the topics of discussion, and so I will try to follow up with that. With respect to the first part of the question, press is being invited to that trip. They're traveling commercially. There is a press logistics component to make sure that they can get everywhere, that they're given access to everything. There's a press conference.
You can't possibly go to all three of those cities.
That's not. But the answer is the plane that the secretary is taking doesn't accommodate that, but they have made accommodations for members of the press to cover everything. And I know that. No, we don't get involved in the logistics for every cabinet member's trip. I would advise you to touch base with the secretary, with the State Department on this. But I know that they have made aware of the concerns of some of your colleagues, and they are making accommodations in the future with respect to the size of the plane. But make no mistake about it, there is a logistics component to make sure that the press is welcome throughout the trip and at every stop. And that accommodations are taken care of, and there's logistical support to do that. There'll be a press conference component as well.
Would you like, though, public diplomacy and this kind of important diplomatic initiative for this administration to be covered fully going forward?
I think it will. I hope it will be covered fully.
Reporters allowed to be on the plane with the secretary, as they have for many years.
And I think that when appropriate, they can. And again, there's a big difference between making sure that we carve out X number of seats and making sure that we have transparency and openness and covering events. They have logistical support for you all to make sure that you have hotels, there's travel support, there's accommodations and filing centers. I mean, at some point, this isn't about blocking anybody. They've gone above and beyond. Not every plane can accommodate every member of the press.
You couldn't get a bigger plane?
It's not a question. There's an element of tax. Thank you. I understand that, and there's an element of cost savings at this point that the secretary is trying to achieve. But at the end of the day, there has been a press component to every stop of the secretary's trip. He is doing everything he can to logistically support the press who wants to come and cover him, and they are being open to make sure that the secretary is available throughout the trip. Yes.
President Trump was very critical of German Chancellor Merkel on the campaign trail. I was just wondering, how does the White House think that will affect the tone of the meeting on Tuesday, and what type of tone does the president plan to take?
I know that we did a bit of a readout earlier today on that. There's a lot of excitement on both sides of the ocean for this trip. I know that we are looking forward to meeting with the Chancellor and her team, and I've talked to their folks over there, and they're very excited about coming over. There's a lot of trade and economic interest on both sides, and obviously there's an element of national security that we share. And so I will let the trip look forward to the readout, but there's a lot of excitement coming, and I think the President looks forward to meeting with the Chancellor and discussing areas of shared national interest with Athena.
Just following up on all of this Flynn discussion, I gather from today and yesterday, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to make sure I understand the answer to this question. Are you saying the President was not aware that Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was acting as a foreign agent when he appointed him to be National Security Advisor?
Correct. Well, and just remember, you wouldn't know that until he filed. He didn't file till 2 days ago, so therefore nobody would have known that because he hadn't filed as a foreign agent until 2 days ago.
My understanding is that you filed a lobbying disclosure with Congress in November.
Again, that's different than filing a FARA request with the DOJ. Well, it's one question Friday.
It's very much attached to this.
All right.
the other question is, did Flynn disclose he was acting as a foreign agent in the security clearance review before he became NSA?
I don't know the answer to that question. That's something that you should follow up with General Flynn on. April?
Sean, I want to go back to the numbers. When is it when a former president's spillover ends and the new president stands on his own merit? When does that happen?
Well, I think on January 20th at noon, you start to assume command of the government. And, what specifically are you asking for?
Numbers from jobs.
Well, I think that this is the first full month that encapsulates the president's administration. I think that's a very telling number. Look, and I get it. These numbers are going to go up and down. But I think for the first full month, we're seeing the enthusiasm and spirit that so many business leaders have been drawn to. And it's exciting as a first month. But I think this encapsulates a full 30 days of the Trump presidency. And so, we're going to continue to work forward with policies that will lower regulation and lower taxes, create a more business-friendly and entrepreneurial-friendly business climate to allow the expansion of U.S. companies and grow U.S. jobs.
And lastly, over the last couple of weeks, we've heard all the negatives, well, not all the negatives, but a large portion of negatives about the Affordable Care Act and how you're looking to make it patient care.
Right.
So with that, are there any positives that you can articulate from ACA that will carry into possibly patient care?
Children being able to stay on their plans to 26. There's a pre-existing condition piece. But again, remember...
That's the way we understand. That's subject to...
No, but that you're asking if there's elements. I think those are some things that... and again, remember, there's some stuff that was part of the ACA that is stuff that Republicans had supported for a while as well. I think this is making sure that this is the most effective and comprehensive health care policy that achieves the president's goals.
Those are two things.
You asked... I don't know, April. I'm sure I could go through the bill and get back. It's very long, as you saw the other day. It's 1,000-page, 974 pages. Very good. David Jackson.
The Palestinians are saying that President Trump invited President Abbas to the White House for a meeting very soon.
Yeah.
Can you confirm that?
I can. Thank you guys very much. Let's end on a positive note. Have a great weekend. We look forward to seeing you. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Are you watching SNL this weekend since you talked about moving the podium?
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed Sean Spicer's press briefing, carried live here, as we always carry the briefings, Right Side Broadcasting. On Right Side Broadcasting, I am Steve Lookner. We're here, as usual, where we do a little bit of a post-show. We also do a pre-show for every briefing, in case you want to join us next time and you missed it today. I wrote down some things that I thought were interesting that Sean Spicer said today. But if while we're on the air, we would love to hear what you thought about the briefing, any comments you might have, any questions you wish were asked, any particularly interesting moments you thought there were, or just any thoughts you have about the events of the day, the news events of the day while we're on here. So if you want to send your comment to me, happy to read it on the air, direct message me at Lookner, at Lookner on Twitter, or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. And I'll talk about for a second. So actually, I want to before I mention what I noticed during the press briefing, I want to read a message I got from Mr. D.E. Banks. Mr. D.E. Banks said, "Hey Steve, Redemption X here. Did you see the flag on the Spicer jacket? Isn't that a distress signal? If it is, then I think it should never be overlooked as a simple accident. Calls and action must be made to the right people to find out what's up with that. Spicer is a grown man and isn't blind. I advise a probe into that as if a life is on the line." So what Mr. D.E. Banks is referring to, if you didn't know, is when Sean Spicer began the press briefing, he came out and his American flag pin was upside down. And it was upside down for a couple minutes. And then finally, somebody, I think it might have been John Roberts, pointed out to him that it was upside down, and eventually he fixed it. If you want to see that clip, by the way, we posted that on Right Side. So if you look at Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube, there's a clip called Sean Spicer Realizes His American flag pin is upside down. We cut out that clip and we posted it. It's there. You can go watch it. You can even watch it right now. And Mr. D.E. Banks, you think this is, so I'd heard somebody else online say that's a distress signal, upside down flag, and you think this was intentional. So you think that Sean Spicer was trying to signal distress? Interesting comment, Mr. D.E. Banks. I'm not, I also think it's possible that it was just an accident, but this is your view, and I'm willing to let you get your view out there. So that's what Mr. D.E. Banks says. If you have a view on this, let me know. Write in, either at Lookner on Twitter, direct message me, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Any other comments here? Richard P. wrote this. Richard P. wrote, pressing for free plane ride to China with Secretary of State. As a taxpayer, don't we have the right to say, no, pay your own way? Thank you, Richard, for your comment. I'm going to my other comments about things that I had written about during the press conference. Oh, let me just see if I can get this. There was one email we got here. Oh, I wanted to read this email I had gotten from Jason Thornton. And Jason said, how corrupted can Comey be given all the nefarious handlings of the Clinton email scandal? He has doubled down on him, saying there were no wiretaps, disregarding all the leaks to the contrary. Do you think he is corrupt or blindly ignoring evidence to the contrary? Thanks again, Jason Thornton. Thank you, Jason. So I need to go back and see what Comey said about this, but I wonder if it's possible. Is it possible that James Comey doesn't know about that there could be a wiretap that was put on through a FISA warrant on, say, certain Russian individuals who were talking to American individuals, and some of those American individuals might have been located at some point in Trump Tower. Could there have been a FISA warrant covering those conversations that James Comey didn't know about? I'm not sure if he's made aware of necessarily of every single FISA warrant. So if he's, because I believe that's when you ask for a FISA warrant, someone from the Department of Justice goes to the FISA court, but they don't go to the FBI. So what I'm wondering is it possible, Jason, even if, could it be possible that James Comey is telling the truth and that he says, I don't know of any warrants, even if there are actually, even I don't know of any wiretaps, even if there was some sort of wiretap? I don't know, just wondering. So, but as to how much, I'm just hoping, so Jason, thank you for your email. I'm just hoping that we eventually find out the just facts about, was there a wiretap or not? If there was, who was it on? What calls did it listen to, or was it even on calls? Was it on computers? Who knows? Will we ever find this out? I don't know. I would just like to know for sure, so we can know. Let's get back here. So hold on, another message here. This is from Chad Matthew, and Chad says, best phrase from Sean Spicer, don't make me move the podium, referring to Melissa McCarthy on SNL. Wow, that was genius. Love Trump's pick for a press secretary. He adds spice to the press briefing. Thank you, Chad Matthew. And I was actually going to talk about that moment. That moment, I wrote down some context as to where that was from. Hold on. Let's see here. He was asked about the jobs numbers and whether he politicized the jobs numbers, and he said, don't make me make the podium move. And that was a reference to, on SNL, they've had several sketches where they portray Sean Spicer at the press conference. And I know in at least one of them, they've had him attack a reporter by moving the podium at the reporter. So that was a reference to that. Chad, you like that. Thank you for writing in. Let's see if anybody else has written in yet. I want to get to your comments. This is from SH7401. That's at Tyala. And at Tyala says, that was an amazing press conference. Don't make me move this podium. Haha, great coverage, Right Side and Lookner. Thank you so much for writing in and saying that. Yes? We will begin taking phone calls Monday. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. So I've just gotten word. This is really neat. We are going to begin on the post-show for the Sean Spicer press briefings, and also maybe the pre-show, to take phone calls. It's a big announcement we have. We will start being able to take phone calls on our shows. So like when we cover right now, like if we cover the post show, when we come on after Sean Spicer's press briefing and we do the post show, we're going to start being able to take your phone calls. I'm excited about that. So exciting news. That'll start on Monday. Tune in for that. Get ready to call in. So a bunch of you seem to have liked the don't make me move this podium moment. And I will say, I do think, there was, Sean Spicer maybe has been joking around a bit more than he was initially, like during the first few days of his press briefings. Now, maybe that's because he had just started then, or maybe it's because there was like tense stuff going on with the media and there was stuff going on in the news that made it tense. But for whatever, it seems to me at least, I don't know if you agree, that he's been a little more lighthearted, not all the time, but at some of the times, and there's jokes. Several jokes. He joked around when the American flag thing happened, and so maybe it's just somebody starts a new job and figuring stuff out and can be a little nervous, but maybe he's settling in, and this we're seeing more of the real Sean Spicer. So, but a bunch of you have liked the joke today he told about moving the podium. Once again, this is our post coverage of the Sean Spicer press briefing. We cover them all here live at Right Side Broadcasting. We do a pre-show and a post-show. So tune in to us for the press briefings. And I should also say, what else did I want to mention? Oh, I want to keep reminding people that we are going to be at the rally, the President Trump rally in Nashville next Wednesday. A bunch of you have asked. Yes, we will be there. Yes, we will be showing the rally live on Right Side. Yes, we will be doing the pre-show and post-show where we talk to the crowds. We don't just show the crowds, we talk to the crowds. We interview the people there and we let you know what they have to say. So we love doing that. Please come and say hi to us if you're in Nashville at the rally and you see us there. Come and say hi. We'd love to say hi to you. Also, we're excited to bring you the rally coverage. We love bringing you these press briefings. We're trying to do more and more, but a big part of that, being able to do more and more, is to be able to have enough money to do more and more. And we don't take big donations from donors who want to control what we have to say. We want to stay independent. So we really rely on you to stay on the air. So if you feel like making a donation, we'd really appreciate it. It really does keep us in business and keeps us growing. The ways to do that, you can either go to rsbn.tv/donate. That's rsbn.tv/donate. Or if you're watching this live, you can click in the chat room, which is next to the video. At the bottom, there's a $sign, and you can click on that $sign and donate that way. Even a small donation, we really appreciate. So don't think like, oh, my donation is going to be too small, they won't care. No, we will care, and we will really appreciate it. So thank you so much to everybody who's donated. We really appreciate it. Thank you to the moderators again for moderating the chat today. We have a few more minutes left in the post show. If you'd like to write in any more comments about what you thought about the press briefing or questions you might have, or comments about the news of the day, either direct message me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Feel free to follow me while you're there. And follow Right Side Broadcasting at RSB Network. So either direct message me on Twitter or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Let's see here. Richard, you said, Richard P., Steve, why has RSBN not interviewed Dr. Steve, is it Piecenick? Piecenick has spoken on InfoWars, revealing he helped in a silent coup. I am not familiar with Steve Piecenick. I will look into this, Richard. We will put it on the requested list. Thank you for your requests. We always like to hear your requests here. Let us know if there's something you'd like to see on Right Side. We are here to bring you programming you want to see. I'm just checking my email quickly. Then I'm going to talk about a couple things that I noticed during the press briefing. Oh, we have a comment here from Greg. Greg says, I can't help but wonder if these reporters are really that stupid. It seems they cannot understand what is being said. Is this all the press can do is whine on and on? Finally, each time the event ends, you hear your reporters yell out, not a question, but a jab. So, Greg, you and a couple other viewers today, at least one other viewer I can mention, have reported that you're not really liking the attitude of the reporters. You feel it's negative toward Sean Spicer. You feel it's confrontational. And you're saying, Greg, you think they're not really listening to what's being said. So I appreciate the comment. Thank you for saying that. And I wonder, is that what a lot of you are thinking about out there about this? And as I said before, I mean, there is a difference between reporters being reporters and trying to get information and reporters being nasty. And so I'm all for reporters trying to get information, but I'm not for reporters trying to be nasty. It seems like some of you think that they've crossed over into the nasty level at certain points during the press briefing. So anyways, Greg, thank you for the comment. Much appreciated. Let's see. Boog Rose says, Steve, maybe we can get a call with President Trump when we have... So Boog Rose says, Miss Steve, maybe we can get a call with President Trump when we have new show format with Collins. That would be lovely. If President Trump wants to call in, we will put him in the front of the line. We won't do that for a lot of people, but we will do that. And that will be cool to do. And so, you know, I do remember we did have a neat interview a few weeks ago when Milo Yiannopoulos actually called in the day that Milo Yiannopoulos was uninvited from CPAC. He called in here and did a live interview, but we were like, we haven't had this technology all fixed up yet. So during that interview, I had to hold the phone up to the microphone. You can go, it's on Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube if you want to watch it. So you can go search for it there. If you search up Milo Yiannopoulos interview, you'll find it. So we are going to, starting Monday, ooh, this fell off. When did that happen? Did I not put it on? No, I did put it on. I'm sorry. Sorry. I hope that wasn't off for a long time. So I guess my mic fell off and we just replaced it. So thank you to Micah, the producer, for letting me know that. All right, anyways. We're going to have the capability on Monday to start taking your calls on this show, on the post show, and I think even on the pre-show as well. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to talking to you in person over by voice rather than just over computers, but and iPads and stuff. Although that's fun too. Anyways, more comments from people. Let's see. This is Miriam Deans. Miriam Deans right. Tired of so many questions about Flynn. Crazy. I did say in the pre-show I was concerned. I felt that they were going to ask about this topic, but also I mentioned how there are certain topics that sort of keep coming back, and General Flynn questions seems to be an evergreen topic for the press briefing. So, Miriam Deans, you are saying you don't like so many questions about it. One thing that was said today in the briefing is, I have it written down. This is what Sean Spicer said. He was asked about General Flynn, whether, hold on, let me look up my notes so I see what it was. He said it wasn't the role for the Trump transition to offer guidance. Flynn was responsible to report lobbying. So he wasn't willing to take the blame for General Flynn not initially reporting that he was lobbying for Turkey. He said it was up to General Flynn to do that. Okay, so I just got another message from you. Thank you for writing in. Let me go back to your messages. This is from Vida Marie. Vida Marie says, yes, the reporters are rude. I wish Right Side Broadcasting was at the press conference. We'd love to be there. We're trying our best to get there. We'll keep you posted on that, Vida. But it's probably 4 or 5 of you have written in and said you thought the press was rude today or nasty to Press Secretary Spicer. So thank you for your comments. Yeah, Boog wrote in, you lost me. So I guess for a minute there you lost my mic. I had it on, it fell off. It's never happened before. So I apologize. Let's see, a few more minutes here we have on our coverage. Just remember tonight also, you can watch our nighttime lineup tonight. 7 Eastern, America First with Nick Fuentes. 8 Eastern, Right Mindset. No, it's not the Right Mindset. I'm forgetting what it's called. What is it called? It's not Right Mindset. It's something Mindset. I can't remember. They'll come in and tell me. With Mike Cernovich. I know that's who hosts it. And the Wayne Dupree Show. I can't even remember. I always mess this up. Mindset, Mike Cernovich. I'm going to look this up so I can remember the name of the show. Can't remember. Anyways, go Google, go look up Cernovich, Mike Cernovich Mindset on Right Side YouTube and you'll find it. Anyways, he's at 8 Eastern and then Wayne Dupree is at 9 Eastern. You can watch them all tonight on Right Side Broadcasting. Once again, join us next Wednesday for the President Trump's rally from Nashville. It's going to be fun. Okay, what else did I want to let you know about? Is there anything else I'm forgetting about? Oh, I should remind you, if you want to, we love to be able to let you know about all our videos when they're happening. If you want to know, get alerts whenever we have live events, even or live video or videos going out. Subscribe to us on YouTube and make sure you click the notifications bell. You only get the notifications if you click that bell. You can't. It's not just from subscribing that you get all the notifications. And if you're not getting notifications and you thought you should be, go check and see if that bell. Go hit that bell and see if the settings are correct. This is from SH7401. SH7401 says, I agree with the others. Press have been very rude unless they start taking Skype questions. Then they smarten up. Okay, so, wow, you guys are pretty unanimous in thinking the press has been rude to Sean Spicer. Maybe since he's been joking with them, they'll be nicer to him. We'll see. But I appreciate all your feedback. Okay, let me just check my email real quick, make sure I'm not missing any of your emails. So, all right, well, we're going to, I think, wrap it up here on the post show. And just know, in addition to our shows that are coming on tonight, we are going to, we also are always here to cover breaking news. So, for example, late last night, South Korea removed their president from office. We came in and we covered it. Had a nighttime stream. So we covered that last night, and we are always here to cover breaking news for you. So just know that you can always tune to us for breaking news. If you want to know when we're going to go with breaking news, we tweet out about it. So either follow me at Lookner, Lookner, or follow Right Side Broadcasting at RSB Network, or follow us both. And also, again, if you'd like to donate, we appreciate all the donations. It keeps us in business. It keeps us on the air. So if you like our coverage and you want to support us, go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate, or click the dollar sign under the YouTube chat. And what else is there? I think I've kind of covered everything. So we're so happy you joined us for the press briefing today. We will be covering all the press briefings and also the ones from the State Department too. Margaret Howell, our reporter in D.C., is supposed to start going into the State Department briefings. So we're excited for that. So lots of exciting stuff happening here at Right Side Broadcasting. But for now, we hope you have a great weekend. Thank you. Oh, I forgot. Thank you to the moderators again for moderating the chat today and all day. Appreciate it. But for now, thanks for joining us here at Right Side Broadcasting. I am Steve Lookner. Thank you to Jake and Micah and Joe for all your help today. And we will see you, well, we'll definitely see you next week. But